My name is Ami Lee. I am the Director of Public Health Initiatives for Somatic Experiencing International, and I am so excited to bring to you this month's installation of our community conversations, where we are featuring some super dynamic somatic experiencing practitioners, people with backgrounds in therapy and bodywork, yoga, all kinds of health and healing practices who've chosen to transform the world by becoming influencers in social media while bringing forth the mental health resources they do. So excited to hear what they have to say. I know you are too. So as I invite Eileen, Jordan, Edward, and Britt to come on screen, I want to let you know that this series has been established by SEI as a charitable contribution to the public health discourse, where we would like to be supporting more conversations about the dynamic resources in mental health that are available to support a world that's experiencing intense trauma, crisis, panic, catastrophes, upset. We can become resilient and resource together when we expand the public health discourse with mental health resources like this series. So no further ado, Eileen, Jordan, Eddie, Britt, go ahead and turn on your cameras, come off mute. Mute is so 2020. Hi, Eileen. Okay, everybody's here. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Eddie, hi. Jumping out of my seat over here just to be with you. Folks, we have a tradition here. Rather than me introducing you, I want everyone to get to know you, to just really get a sense of you right up front so we can just begin to be with you in a really profound and connected way. Thanks for making the time, for sharing yourself, sharing your resources, and exploring this with us. I'm going to pitch a question to you, and then I'm going to disappear off of screen until I come back because we have more questions in the queue I want to ask for you. But I will disappear and let you talk amongst yourselves. But the first question I would love for you to answer today is, what inspired you to start your social media platform? Like, I'm really curious, especially, wanting to support other therapists, getting more access in the world to expand their resources and their capabilities and their reach. I think many people think about it as just a marketing thing. And I've gotten to know each of you a little bit. I think you're so beautiful, deep, profound, and transformative. And I want to hear what inspired you to start it. I don't think it's just marketing, but maybe it's just marketing. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to just shut up and let you talk. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having us. I guess I can go first. So I seriously did not know what I was doing when I started this whole platform. But what I knew is that I really wanted to make an impact and inspire people to go on their own healing journey. So I started my Instagram account, and at the time I was also writing a book. So I was really trying to collect and gather an audience so that when I launched the book, I would have people interested in learning more about trauma healing and how we can create a healing lifestyle, and also really to share my own personal journey of healing. And I thought that that would be the inspirational piece. So that was kind of, for me, the beginning of starting my social platform. It wasn't really much more complicated than that. And I just love the interaction. And also I wanted to create connectivity and community. So those were the big things for me.
Well, when I finished my clinical training program, I suddenly had this realization that I wasn't going to be writing as much anymore. And I had a little bit of a panic, because for me, writing is such a part of how I synthesize information. It's really how I codify for myself. And also, it is such a kind of personal and private relationship, the writing process. And so I thought, okay, I know Instagram, I'm just going to start to produce psycho ed content, because I felt like, just for the friends and the audience that I had there, it'll keep me kind of accountable. And I started to do, and in a way, I kind of thought of it as a love letter to my younger self. Like, I want to offer the information that I wish I'd had in my 20s, because my content is specifically around relationships. And I'm so aware all the time that if I had started therapy earlier, if I had started my own training, that I could have saved myself a lot of suffering. And so then, and just my friends started to find so much value in it. I was surprised. And it's been just a really beautiful experience that's so different from my daily work with clients. I have a feeling of really kind of socializing in a way I don't get to in my normal work day. So, and it's continued to open up these possibilities and doors for me that I didn't even anticipate.
Yeah, Jordan, I love what you said there about writing, because that's just like the cathartic process of writing was how I got into it. I had to get all my thoughts down on paper. Basically, I started my social media platform as a sounding board for nerdy info pertaining to embodied cognitive science or embodied science. And then it started to evolve. Really, I saw how important it was as a tool for destigmatizing particularly touch therapy, therapeutic touch. Touch is arguably our most valuable, if not forgotten, sense, and it carries a lot of unspokens like power dynamics and et cetera. So I really wanted to get all of that out there, and like you said, it evolved into something bigger and beautiful, and it's that's the journey I've been on with my particular platform, and I love it. Yeah.
I love that this is a panel of writers. That makes me so happy. Like, nothing wrong with marketing, but I'm like, every single one of us here has the same story. So mine was similar. I'm an introvert. I had no intention. I wish I could altruistically say I wanted to help the world, but it was more, I want to write. And I knew one of my goals was to do traditional publishing and go the traditional route. And in my research, I discovered that no one wants to hear from you, and no one cares what you think, and no one cares what you have to say until you start accumulating some sort of community or platform. And so I just started writing on Instagram. I love what Jordan, you said about accountability. It's like, if I put it there, then it's there. And it's such a great laboratory for testing ideas and for sharing information and honing your voice and making huge, giant oops mistakes and kind of figuring out, oh, wait, no, I need to not say it that way. I need to say it another way. And it's incredibly powerful as a way of making you think from all of the different facets and all of the different lenses. It's so easy to get myopic and just, I'm going to say my thing. It's like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. And I didn't think about that. And so that just sort of built over time. And fortunately, I made my larger, I'm going to keep making mistakes, but I made my bigger mistakes early. And then as the platform started to grow, I learned along with the community. And then eventually I was able to do the book. But it's such an amazing place to socialize for introverts and to write and test out ideas and to share information that is not accessible. Like polyvagal, unless you're in the trauma world or unless you have access to that type of therapy, you're not going to know about it. And so I think social media is an incredible place of access to take all the jargon out of what we do and make it accessible and understandable and actionable. And I'm a writer, so that's what I do.
Yeah, I love how you said that. It's a way to put action into the public sphere that's like tangible, accessible. That's something that I noticed over time. It's always a work in progress, right? It's like when I started writing mega long captions, like 2 or 3 captions, and I was like, okay, we need to condense this so people can have something to take away from it, but yeah, yeah.
I also like the relatability, like to be able to share this information and make it so relatable to people where they're like, oh yeah, I get that. That's something that I can connect with. And that it's, for me, the connectivity is such a powerful part of the platform.
I saw Jordan, and the connectivity for me too is everything, especially in this isolated world. Jordan, I saw you nodding hard when I talked about my mistake making.
Yes, I
So
was
I
really,
wanted to be like, tell me more.
I was just about to appreciate you for I think also the lens of laboratory is, I think that's so important. I don't know for the participants who are here that are thinking about creating content or that already have that like the grace of experimentation and making mistakes and learning from from the mistakes that get made, that's such a part of the richness of the community, but also of learning learning what is of value both to the people, both to the community and to ourselves. And so I think that I wish that I'd had this conversation with you in the beginning, because the first mistakes I made publicly, I had a lot of shame and, oh no, how do I take this back? But the more that's time that I've spent making content, the more I just see it all as grist for the mill. And that's part of the richness, I think, of making mistakes and then being able to be in dialogue. I mean, that's what our work is about, right? Rupture and repair. So I just am appreciating you saying that a lot.
What
happens now?
I don't know. I feel like that it's created a lot of healing for myself. And in turn, I feel like sharing that journey has been helpful to the people that I'm sharing with.
It's also a great place for my own SE practice, because nothing for me is more activating than people on the Google webs not understanding what I'm trying to say and then getting angry at me. And so the source of somatic information in my own system, I take all of that into my therapist. It's like, okay, this happened. And this is what my nervous system did in reaction. And now I feel like quitting everything and closing my practice and hiding in a cave and never coming out, or I want to go and punch a bunch of people. And what a great place if you're intentionally conscious of the activation cycles, then social media. I mean, Instagram is one of the most wonderful places if you're needing to trigger stuff. Like, off you go, it's all there for you. Whatever you want to trigger, it is available to you there. Eek and yay.
Yes, I'm reflecting on how dysregulated I got with the first kind of critical comments I experienced. Now I'm just like, whatever. So I have not thought about that, how much more comfortable I've become with criticism because of Instagram.
It's a practice of engagement and disengagement too. You gotta know when you're gonna disengage as well.
You guys, I want to kind of jump in here with a question right off the bat, just selfishly. Like, I had questions knowing you guys were coming, and you all got to it right away. And I want to just say this also to encourage participants now to like go ahead and like, I'm sure questions are already starting to come up, you guys, as you're listening. So please be adding more questions into the chat and voting other people's ups. But here's something I had for you, just hearing what you just all said. You all have said community. Like, you all said like writing was there, but like you're talking about building community. And when you talk about community on like the sorts, like a couple of you guys have 45,000 followers, a couple of you have like 10, like it's like, can't people just have 300 friends, right? Like, how do you have community with that kind of a volume? Like when you're talking about like criticism, I guess I'm thinking like criticism is so like, oh, I'm a public figure, I have to deal with criticism. And I put that in contrast somehow to like, oh, there's a community I'm actually involved and interacting with. There's something about that. So that's kind of abstract and kind of vague, but I just wanted to drop that in your space. And unlike other people, I'm going to drop it and run and just let you chat amongst yourselves again. But like, could you just chat a little about community, and what is the experience of community from where you stand within the ones you're creating?
Wow. So I would say for myself, like everything for me, and like I feel like my lifeline is connection and community. So I really try to focus on what I'm collectively sharing and what people are relating to, rather than really get caught up in the criticism, because the criticism is always going to be there. And I know for myself, I'm my worst critic. So it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter what the other criticism is, because the internal messages and voice is so strong that I just keep trying to stay focused. Okay, I'm trying to share and inspire and help people heal. And so if I just stay focused there, and I stay away from the criticism as best as I can, because it's really kind of hard at times, then everything seems to feel more cohesive and my nervous system stays more regulated, so that I can actually present better information and I guess I would just say be that inspiration to other people. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's hard at times. And, sometimes I'll watch a video of myself and I'm like, did I really put that out there? So
I love what you said, Eileen, about our inner critic is all like you're going to type that at me, like join the voices in my head and like let's see, like you've got nothing on the voices in my head. I love that so much.
Yeah. So I just know for myself, like I got to work on that and focus there before I start getting focused on the other criticism, because this is way louder.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking about this question about community. And I feel like for me, this is kind of where there's a synthesis between my values as a person, ethics as a therapist, and the kind of ethics of social media, I guess I would say as well. And I think, in terms of community, what I really love to see that just touches my heart so much is in comments when someone will offer a little anecdote about something that they're struggling with, and someone responds with something supportive or some piece of wisdom or advice from their own life. I even like these moments in that, people will get kind of myopic about a piece of content and not think kind of broadly, and that I get to then engage with them and take them into a more expansive view of things. So for me, the community part is really in the dialogue that starts to happen amongst participants. And I'm often just really inspired by the kind of support and warmth that it gets exchanged, because that's not always what I see on social media, and certainly that's not always how people are engaging.
I love that.
Yeah.
When I started, I made it a point to every person that followed to connect with and say hi to. That there becomes a point, and this is just like tactical nuts and bolts stuff. There becomes a point where that's not a viable option. But as you build, if you focus on the same people tend to comment, and we sort of cluster around whatever topic. And regardless of what your like follower count actually says, you're going to start to become familiar with the people that support your work, and you're going to start to engage, and you'll get into the whole like DM world. And it's very low social risk. I have found some of my closest real world friendships have come after years of just commenting back and forth on each other's stuff and being curious about it. And when someone is getting trolled, I'll message them and say, hey, just want you to know there are some people here who don't necessarily agree with that. And it's incredibly supportive. And there's a real human component there. If I post thinking about, I have this number of people, those posts never work. Anytime I'm posting from a reactive, like that place, it's like, so if you're being authentic and you're really going with the intention of community building, you're going to, our brains are primed to find what we're training them to find. It's why when you're buying a house, you see real estate signs everywhere. Or if you're buying a car, you see car stuff everywhere. If you're looking for community within what you're doing, it's likely going to be there and be a resource for you, which is really fun.
I think you just said something so important it's about authenticity. And I know that for myself, it's like the more, and I've had people trying to guide me along the way. And I'm like, no, I just need to have my authentic voice, because that's what people want, is they want to know that you're a real person with real stuff going on. And I don't know, I think that's where people really start to relate and connect, is in our vulnerability. And so that authenticity piece is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think the closest connections in community. See, I came to the platform through. I was already teaching bodywork. I was teaching I was teaching several practitioners, so I viewed it as a classroom setting, really, like at first, and kind of the closest group would come to the page, and we'd all string out these like long thoughts, and we'd take these topics and go on trains with them, and I think that's where like a lot of good debate came in, and that's where a lot of close connections got formed, and that's what mattered the most to me personally. And then seeing other people kind of wave into that and build was one of the coolest parts about the platform, is seeing how debate got started, and then like kind of a train like happened. And people were able to latch onto that train, and yeah, so that was definitely the part of community that I love the most about the platform. Yeah.
Okay, perfect timing, guys. Questions are exploding in the question and answer set. Well, the question asking, you guys are the answers. Two people, Cheryl and Penny specifically, are asking really similar questions. And I would like to maybe bring them both over and let them kind of chat amongst you guys for the responses. Cheryl and Penny, if you are there and willing to come on screen with our featured guests and ask them, please raise your little hand in the raise hand feature. And we will not bring you over if you don't, but I'm gonna do a little countdown so we don't keep everybody. Okay, I see. All right, here comes Penny. And how about you, Cheryl Herzog Arniel? It would be wonderful. And in the meantime, while they're coming over, I want to just give, oh, good, Cheryl's coming to you. I want to give you guys an insight into who's with us today. I have Maria from North Carolina. I have Courtney from Washington. Kelly is in the Big Island, Hawaii right now. Anyone jealous? I got Kristen in Wisconsin. We have Claire in Quebec. God bless the Quebecois. We have Jai in California. We have St. Louis, but we have more Quebecois. Hi, Marie. We also have Sabgani from India. Thank you. It's very late in the night in India. You really wanted to be here for this, and I'm glad you're here. We have lots of California, a few Colorado, Michigan, New York Metro, and Penny is coming with us. I'm just going to shout this out. She's here all the way from the UK. Hi, Penny.
Hi, Penny.
Cheryl, go ahead and turn on your video, Cheryl, and come off mute, and we will have you both. You have similar questions, so go ahead and cast them out if you can. I'm getting Cheryl. Hi.
Okay, so maybe I'll go first. I'm just wondering, is it essential to have an Instagram account? You can't do any of this just through Facebook?
I'm sure you can. It's not my favorite platform. Instagram is aesthetically more pleasing, more designed for interaction. So I'm sure that you can. I'm just not a Facebook person.
I'm the same, but I also think the demographics have changed quite a bit. So I think Facebook tends to be an older demographic, and it's also being used more for like creating, I don't know how to say this, but like community rooms or chat rooms and that sort of thing. And Instagram is much more fluid in disseminating information. And I actually think personally, since I'm not a tech person, I think it's much easier to use. And that's kind of what pulled me there. So I think it really depends on who your audience is.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the only other platform that would be a majority successful is YouTube, especially if you make long form video content or any educational content that requires a longer than a minute, longer than 3 minutes. People have a lot of success there with social media campaigns, but Instagram is absolutely the most accessible. Absolutely, they took elements of other platforms. I tried TikTok there for a while, but then there were privacy concerns with TikTok, so I left there. So Instagram is absolutely like kind of where it's at, or where it has been for many years. So.
Yeah. And all of that to say, it's what Eileen was saying about authenticity. It's like whatever, because I was told if you want to keep growing, you have to join TikTok and you have to be on Twitter and it's like, I don't want to learn multiple platforms. Like that's just too much for my brain to tolerate. So at the end of the day, like they'll tell you, you have to do this and you have to do this, but try them all out. And whichever one you're going to use and whichever one is not going to Twitter dysregulates me. It makes my brain just like, no. So whatever your thing is, I really believe if you're authentic and you're enjoying the process, that will come through regardless of what platform you use. Obviously, if you have certain goals, that will require certain accommodations to platform. But if you're just starting, just ask yourself, what do I like? And what do I not like? And what am I going to show up and do every day? Because it's not supposed to be like, oh my God, I have to log on. Like with LinkedIn, I get all like, oh my God, I have to navigate this. So if you're comfortable on Facebook, use Facebook.
Thank you, Britt. I think that's brilliant because my question was led in by Penny, your great question. How much time do you put into this on a daily basis? Because I have a friend who is a therapist and she doesn't use any social media at all. And she has a number of clients that she feels comfortable with in her practice. But I've considered launching myself when I get my SEP online as well. And it gets overwhelming to think about all the different platforms. So thank you for naming that. And yet I also wonder about, do you respond to everyone's message? Do you read all the comments? And if you do, how do you manage that throughout your day? Thank you. I wasn't prepared to come online, but thank you.
I think it really depends on what your goals are. So I don't have a marketing story. My Instagram was not marketing driven. I have a full practice. For me, it was just, I worked in theater education and the nonprofit sector for a long time before that. I have a lot of skills and interests that don't get utilized in just being a therapist. And so I get a lot of client queries and service requests, and currently it's just me and my practice. And so that's not what my goal is. This work has opened other doors. I've just been offered a teaching position. I was offered a book contract. Those are the kinds of professional opportunities that have come from my social media presence that I didn't anticipate, and they were 5-year, 10-year professional goals that came more quickly because of this work. I love to write and I have so much content. And so it's really easy for me. I can, take one idea from a post that I wrote 3 years ago and update the caption and tweak it. And there it is. I would say probably an hour a day that I commit to actual content creation, but sometimes it's not even that. It can be, 15, 20 minutes with a little mix and mash of something I've already done. And in terms of one of my values is responsiveness. And so I do try to respond substantively to anybody who's really making a connection or an outreach. I don't comment on all the comments. I don't do therapy via direct messages, but if someone says something that, offers some appreciation or some way that they were touched by the work that I did, I do respond because that's just a value of who I am.
Yeah, I think that, Jordan, you make a good point. I think it really does depend on what your goals are in building your platform. And I know for myself that, and I've been trying to be more diligent lately, is to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this amount of time, this amount of days per week to my social, because if you don't, and you don't nurture it, it doesn't really grow. So it's something that you really have to nurture. If your goal is to create more community.
Yeah, Eileen, it's a balance of working on the project itself and working inspired. So it's like, so you need to find, or I'm sorry, I need to find that balance where I'm either inspired enough to create the content, or if I know that I can take a backseat for a moment and breathe. But you're right, if I don't facilitate it, it's not going to grow. So I do try to find that like specific time frame in my boundary where I can facilitate growth. But if it's not coming inspired, I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard when you don't feel, and like I'm that way too. Like if I don't feel inspired, I might just take a step back for a couple of days, or maybe it's a week. But I think, again, I go back to this authenticity piece. If you're in it and you're in your authenticity and the creative energy starts flowing, and it'll be there. And when it's not, it's just not. And for myself, I'm just like, okay, that's okay. That's okay right now. There'll be another inspiration.
Yeah, I love that, Eileen, because the prescriptive approach can be useful when you're starting. Like, I'm going to do this for an hour a day, 3 days a week. And if you need sort of prescriptive guidelines to get yourself moving, like that's cool. For me, prescriptive approaches to Instagram take me to like the dark side of my psyche. I go to not good places. No. I go to very boundaryless, like spinny, frenetic, not regulated places. And if we're somatically informed people, our own body is really the source. So for me personally, I have found that the more I go away from the prescriptive approach and go to what makes sense for me today. There are some days, I'm not going to lie, I'll spend 5 or 6 hours a day online, but I'm chatting with people and I'm looking up stuff that I like, and it's not doom scrolling. I'm just enjoying it. And there's some days where I just don't want to deal and I don't want to do it, and I don't. And I love what Jordan said about valuing of connectivity. So I always, respond to people who are giving me like, love your work, it's meant a lot, but I don't respond to every question and I don't respond to every inquiry, because it's not mine to answer every, we put out content, we put out free content, and that's a wonderful gift that we give to the world. But if I made myself sit and answer every single inquiry or combated every single criticism, it would cease to be fun and it would cease to be useful for me, which would make it no use to anybody else. So really follow your own, but it's so not, well, I know this crowd preaching to the choir, but you can trust your body to tell you how to approach it. If you're really tuning in, even though it's not what you're supposed to do or what they tell you to do, or, you're supposed to comment at least on 50 different people's, accounts every single day. And that's how you build a community. It's like, do you can trust yourself. I wish I could go back and tell myself that when I started. You can trust yourself to know how to approach it. Take the tips and the tricks, learn them, that's great, and then make them work for who you are and how you enter the world. Your way is right.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, something that I really kind of am appreciating is that there seems to be a real intrinsic motivational thread for each of us. And I think, that's my offer to anyone, is to find the piece that's for you, because that is going to just kind of support you and buoy you to be interested, to experiment, to play.
Thank you, guys. That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for coming on and asking your question. It's very much like everyone's questions are pretty similar right now. They're all popping up. How do you manage time? How do you respond? I think people are just marveling, when we imagine the kind of volume, what you're dealing with is a lot. So thank you. That was really helpful. And that it occurs to me that that's a lot about just kind of being available over social media. We have another question in the queue that's a little bit more about being, you're all particularly somatic experiencing practitioners. You're trained in doing deep nervous system embodied work. That's like even more intense to imagine how you do that on social media. So I have a wonderful question from a gal named Juliana. Juliana, if you would be willing to come online and ask your question, would you please raise your hand? Raise the little hand on the screen. Awesome. I'm going to bring Juliana on because my guess is this person will have some SE work to talk about, and y'all may want to do some exercises to explore, you know, embodiment online. I mean, I'm not planting seeds, maybe.
I'm so sorry. When I joined as a panelist, it totally cut you off. So I didn't catch what you just said.
Oh, hi, Juliana. You asked a wonderful question. Not the second one, but the sort of SE related one.
Yeah.
Would you go ahead and convey that and just get related with our guests about that?
Yeah. So one thing that I really struggle with is just communicating what this work is to people who, by definition, are probably kind of curious and would probably benefit, but still like aren't super familiar with the vocabulary or have like a mental model of what the work actually seems like. And I find that can be a significant barrier to people actually trying it because they don't know, you know, they just need more information. And so I'm just wondering how you all use the platform to educate people in a way that is clear and simple enough that teaches people who really have no idea what they're getting themselves into, but isn't like oversimplifying in a way that feels like it's missing the point.
I see. I think that keeping it simple and sharing through story is always the best way to help people relate to what you're trying to talk about. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, because I didn't feel like there was a lot of information out there for the layperson on trauma and the nervous system. So everything that I share on my platform is really about how, I mean, I usually come from the place of what I've experienced with clients or what's going on in my own life. And that gives you like context to start, you know, sharing the information and applying it that way. And that's kind of what's worked for me. So I don't know about anyone else, but that's kind of what's been helpful for me.
I had a business coach when I first started my practice, and they said, what's your elevator pitch for somatic experiencing?
Yes,
like,
that's basically what I'm getting at.
Like, you have a brain and then polyvagal. So I've distilled it down, and I agree with you that we don't want to be reductive, but like we have to start somewhere. So I tell people it's driver's ed for the brain. It's like if you're sitting in a car, you don't need to be an auto mechanic to drive your car. You don't even need to have like hardcore aviation knowledge to fly a plane. Like driver's ed for the brain is what somatic experiencing is. And that's sort of demystifies it. And then we can get in, then I get out my whiteboard. I'm like, and here's sympathetic nervous and here's parasympathetic. And I'm really big on taking the jargon, like what Eileen said, like, let's take the jargon out. In my book, I reduced I had to apologize. I'm like, I took your entire 40-year body of work and turned it into cartoons because we can simplify this without it. And as long as it has the disclaimer that nothing is quite this simple, the brain is mysterious, it's likely unknowable in its entirety, but like, let's just call SE driver's ed for the brain. So you can learn just enough so you can feel that you can drive without like running off the road.
I love that.
Yeah, I have a particular love for the illustrators, the people that are talented. And there's a man named Ian. I'm gonna butcher his last name if I try, but the illustrators really got it down when they're able to describe this work. Something that I always start with is, you know, we hear trauma stored in the body, trauma stored in the body. It's my job to like answer how, or like start to unravel how, how and why, and then we can go from there. We'll start to pick this apart. You know, you said about the lingo. You know, somatic experiencing has a term called CYBAM. So it's like, how can we break that down? Send your trauma-informed self as sensation, imagery, affect, behavior, and meaning. And like that can be even more simplified, like down the line, like but just starting with acronyms, starting with the things that already exist, and celebrating sensation as pretty much a driving factor has been a way to like sensation and awe. Like we don't work enough with awe in today's world. So starting with those is like basically how I've tried to start simplifying. But yeah, I have a little jealousy for the illustrators. They seem to get to the heart of things a little bit more. Yeah.
I did not illustrate it, just for the record.
Yeah.
I described it, I drew it, but celebrating sensation, Edward, is a really brilliant way to sort of take the entire body of what we do, because that's what it, if we can tolerate sensation, that's what we talk about with trauma. But it's not just tolerating sensation. It's like, once you do that, then you can celebrate living in a body. I'm so stealing that. I'll attribute credit, but I think that's brilliance.
Okay, I don't know about you, but anybody else? Like, I know I planted the seed, but when you just said that, I wanted to do an exercise.
I have an exercise.
Yes, Jordan. Well, hang on, let me see. Anybody want to come on screen? Jordan's going to lead us. Jordan, will you lead us in it? Can I bring?
Yeah, but I have a little bit of a structure for. I would like to lead. I mean, everybody who's here can participate, but this I wanted to invite anybody who's either just starting off with creating content or is thinking about it, because the exercise I want to do is a little bit, I mean, who knows how it'll go. It's a total mashup. I've never done it before, but I'm experimenting.
Okay, Jordan, literally all of the questions coming in are very, very similar. They're all kind of saying the same things, which lets me think a lot of people are with us who are either creating content or thinking about creating content.
No, can we get 3 people just that are interested in having a little experience here?
Yes. So if you are one of those people, would you please raise your little blue hand, and we're going to bring you on screen. Juliana, thumbs up if you want to stay. Is it okay if we bring more, Jordan, if more want to come on?
Great. I just want to hear from each person. So I'm going to let you moderate that part.
Okay. I'm going to bring on a couple of people, but we'll probably just hear from 3. So I'm going to let Jordan just bring whoever she wants, but it's nice to just see folks on screen. So thank you.
Definitely.
Folks, if you bring your thing off of video, and then Jordan, go ahead and lead us in it. We are yours.
So I want to just invite everyone here to first just take a moment to tune inside and just notice what's here right now. And then I want to invite from your body, from your imagination, to just offer up 3 different topics or themes that either you know a lot about, or you'd like to know a lot about, or that you're passionate about having dialogue about. And you can just notice what you notice and feel what you feel as you let these 3 to 5 themes arrive. And maybe when you have a somatic answer, you'll just put a finger in the air. Great. I see Carol. So Carol, my invitation to you is that you're going to just, if you feel comfortable, take each one of these themes one at a time, just say it out loud and notice your somatic experience as you do.
Okay. Well, the first phrase that came to mind was, I know that the arts heal.
And just, what do you sense inside? What do you notice as you say that?
I'm experiencing a kind of electricity from my pelvic floor to my chest. It's definitely an activation, but it's not fear or anxiety. It's actually kind of unusual. It's and I'm surprised how much is actually in my lower core. It's just a lot of zipping.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So can take a breath if you need to, make space. I always think of sometimes like a good exhalation is like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch clear.
Yeah, I often think of having sherbet between each meal. If I
Oh yes, I love that.
romance.
Amuse-bouche.
Psychological sherbet, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
love that. That's great. I'm stealing that. So when you feel ready, when you've settled, you can just say the next one.
Desire to help.
And what do you notice?
I noticed initially a stronger awareness of like this section of my body and almost a kind of a leaning in. And then I kind of wondered about that. And now I'm feeling again that kind of pelvic floor, not as electric, but almost as being held. I'm not judging it, just a sort of almost a kind of a little clenching around it.
Yeah, I'm so appreciating the way your hands just came up.
Yeah.
So you can have a little more sherbet.
Okay. Or recite my social security number backwards. That one always works too. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're ready,
Okay.
the invitation is for you to say the third one.
Okay. The third one is that I crave self-growth.
And what do you notice?
Notice a deep inhale and an awareness right to the front heart core place. The awareness is not, it's not that there's so much activity. It's almost as if I'm aware of that by noticing what's around it, the chest that I was noticing before, and the lean, the pelvis. Now it's almost, I'm noticing that that's a place that's just still amongst, in the midst or in the center of the rest of the body shifting and flexing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That was helpful.
So what I wanted to invite people into is to start to play with what might become content pillars. Content pillars are themes or topics that drive content generation. And really content pillars, you can, I think about one of my content pillars as healthy relationships. And for me, that breaks down into communication, differentiation, sex. So content pillars don't have to be just one topic. They can be what they should be as an umbrella theme that you can start to really get into the specifics. But what I was noticing with you, Carol, is in a way almost, it felt like the arts heal could be a content pillar, but then I almost felt like the second two might be your values around engagement. And so that was what was really coming through for me. I think those, either the second two could even also become content pillars, but I like that just for everyone even to think about is like, oh, what's a content pillar? And then what are the values if you don't already have those for your business or your practice? They can be the kind of core values that you hold that start to be almost a holding environment for the community that you create.
You're muted.
The first felt like a content pillar, and I like those words, thank you. And the second felt a little bit more like a mission or an intention. And the third felt like a counterbalance of self-care while these things are being put forward.
Oh, I love that.
Fantastic. Really cool, Jordan. I know even like Claire and Marie, Juliana were probably doing that along with that, and everybody at home too. That was really, really a beautiful invitation to be embodied in content creation, which just struck me. Someone asked in here, like, what classes would you guys take for content creation? And you're like, how about Jordan Dan's, like, get connected to yourself to figure out what you want to create? And how about following all these writers things, like, what the freak do I actually want to write about? Like, you just are so robustly yourselves, right? I mean, Claire, Marie, Carol, aren't we getting that from these guys? Like, you're just so yourselves, which is like when we hear the word influencer, we're like, oh, no, that's like somebody way over here, but you're just yourselves is what you're really conveying. I want to thank you guys for participating in the exercise. We're going to send you back to the thing, but we may have some more exercises and you're welcome to join us for more. In fact, if you are one of the guest hosts and you'd like to lead another exercise, you know, just let me know if you would, because that gets to be fun. Jordan. Question that I'm not seeing out here. Do you guys do individual practices? Do each of you have an individual practice where you work with individual clients still? So people should be listening to you today, not only for your expertise about how you created these huge platforms, but also that you're available as a resource. If anybody else would like to share another exercise, let us get, like, Jordan, I just got a real sense. If I want to create content, I might come to you and be like, can you help me somatically stay embodied in that? Now, Brett, I'm your nightmare. I'm a Twitter person. I can't write at all. I've got a neurodivergent area. So I'm like, oh, I can give you 160 characters of nothing. And as long as no one's following me, I'm happy.
That makes so much sense to me.
It does, really does. I see that writers have it's really kind of your forte to be consistent and constant. There's an anonymous question here that well, first of all, I want to give this is our little commercial break. I want to say to everybody who's present, thank you on behalf of Somatic Experiencing International for being here. If you're starting to get a sense, what Jordan just led us through was kind of somatic therapeutic interventions, which whether someone's trained as a therapist or a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, they begin to use somatic body-brain connection pieces to help people move through trauma. But it's not just move through trauma. Jordan just let us move through your creative process. I mean, there's all kinds of somatic experiencing work out there. If you would like to attend an SE Basics, which is a 3-hour live training, we offer them at least monthly. We can email you a special code as a thank you for having come today. I don't want you to feel like you can't learn more about stuff if you want to. We would love for you to do that as our thank you for attending today. So Rabia will be posting in that Q&A our email address, which is publichealth@traumahealing.org. And what you'll want to do is email me and say, I want access to that free basics class, and we'll get you the code. It's a one-time use code for each individual who comes. So that'd just be wonderful to share with you. Also, this is our charitable contribution from the Institute. And so if you are so inclined that you might like to donate, hey, here's my NPR version. Just the price of a cup of coffee, 89 cents in 1972. Or, $7 million if you live in the city I live, where they're very delicious coffees with all kinds of mushroom ingredients. Whatever you'd like to donate, please go to www.traumahealing.org/donate. And there's all different ways you could donate it. $1 a month. You could just make a large gift. You could write us into your will. I know, any of that is fantastic and much appreciated as we try to create more public offerings beyond just the training for the providers. We'd like to just keep generating more support in the world. We've taken mobile mental health teams into disaster crisis spaces. We're developing crisis support curriculums. All those kinds of things is what you could help us fund if you made a donation. So thank you for considering that. That said, I want to switch back over to the questions. There was an anonymous question that I think is really important. It's what are ethical considerations for being this is an Instagram therapist, but however you want to say that, what are your ethical considerations relative to dealing with people's mental health and that the platforms that you do?
Instagram is not therapy. So there are plenty of places to put a big book. I am a very big ethical advocate of disclaiming. Pretty much you will very rarely see me post anything without a big disclaimer. And the disclaimers are almost always something to the tune of Instagram is not therapy. If what I said doesn't work for you, don't do it. This does not take everyone into consideration. Trauma healing requires access to resources and a degree of privilege, which is not available to everybody. So a lot of people I found respond more to the disclaimers than to the content. And just knowing that, you know, what we're saying is going out to a lot of different people with different life experiences. And my disclaimers are, and I probably don't know what I'm talking about. And if in 5 years we have new science that makes this all total crap, then I will stand by the new research, and being really mindful that we're providing info based on the best information available now, but that is not necessarily applicable to everybody and every person in every situation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that ad nauseum in every single thing that you post.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that enough, actually. And what very well said.
Yeah, it's been a big driving culture that, or not a culture, well, movement, this going online and being able to share resources and opinion, but that's what they are, is resources and opinion. They for me in particularly, well, I work with touch, I work with in-person sessions, so it's just really important to separate those two from myself. We're not going to go through this here, and knowing my confidence and boundaries and being able to say that. And so I should work on my disclaimer game. Now that you said that. But yeah, it's vitally important that that's stated. Yeah.
I learned that the hard way, Edward. I learned that many, oh crap, I didn't think about that. Oh my God. So yeah, lesson learned.
One practical way that I deal with ethics is connected to what you're saying, Britt, of just having a disclaimer in my highlights reel, and thinking again, whether it's about your mission or your values or the community guidelines that you're having, just stating that there, because it's always accessible for people to look at. And I kind of, in my head, I have this kind of feeling of like, okay, that's my kind of warning label. And that I don't have to communicate that all the time because it's right there. And then, you know, do no harm. I engage with curiosity and openness. I mean, the same ethical practices that I bring to my work, I think I really do keep that intention and awareness when I am engaging on the platform.
Yeah, and I think one thing, just to add on, that I remembered is in a one-on-one session we deal with power dynamic, and like we don't always know what that is going to look like online, and so it's like it's good to, I got to keep asking myself, like, what is this communicating? What is this communicating? So that's like a really important ethical consideration, is like, okay, am I offloading something, or like, is somebody going to take this and run with it, or can I parse it and make it safe for somebody, you know?
And it's an interesting new world. I mean, I used to be in a modern psychoanalytic group for a long time. The idea of having any self-disclosure was completely taboo. A lot of the faculty that I have worked with, or therapists that I've worked with, just think, if this is crazy. It's crazy to be online. It's crazy to have a digital presence. And it's crazy to be self-disclosing, like my personal stories that I bring to some of my content about my own marriage. But, you know, I'm a Gestalt therapist. I'm in the humanistic tradition. I, you know, as long as I'm being intentional about what I'm disclosing, again, I think of it just as I do in my practice, will this serve and support whatever I'm trying to convey, or whatever concept that I'm looking to illustrate. And so, but yeah, I kind of feel like sometimes I think, oh, we're kind of inventing this as we go, and we're in this new terrain, and will we be looking back and thinking, I can't believe that I did that or said that, but that's selfing, right? That's what it is to be human.
Yeah, I think it's changing so much, and I don't know. I think we're going to look back and say, wow, like how did those therapeutic relationships work if we didn't make ourselves relatable to the people we're trying to serve?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I don't believe that relationship can be one way in order for it to be successful. So I think we have to, yes, carefully share, but the more we make ourselves relatable, the more, and this has been my experience, the more my clients are willing to feel, I think it makes them feel safer. And I think they're more willing to share.
I'll throw in the ethics. The ethics work both in the external and the internal. So there's a degree to which you have to be mindful of how you're engaging ethically with your posts and your content and your community. But then there's like this internal thing. It's like there's a certain point where my research turns into comparison and bordering on self-harm, and then reminding myself that I also have an ethical responsibility to myself to be healthy. And that changes on any given day what that means. But really asking myself, is my lurking, like Edward, I've lurked on your work for years. I think what you do is awesome, and it serves me well. I feel very informed having done that. But asking
likewise.
Really, it's been like 4 years now I've creeped on your stuff, but like I don't feel an ethical dilemma about that. But there are other people. This is why I got off Facebook, because with Facebook, the professional personal lines are so easy to blur for me that Instagram allows me to really stay in like, this is my professional zone without like, what is so-and-so from 4th grade doing now? And just asking yourself, is your own online behavior, whether it's researching, commenting, engaging, and again, your body will tell you whether or not you're in alignment with your own set of ethics. I figured out what my own ethics were by noticing what didn't feel good first. And that informed what does feel good for me. And then when I'm out of alignment, I go to therapy for that too.
Right. So isn't it like this idea of the balance between boundaries and vulnerability, right? So there's those two things of just really trying to balance it.
Guys.
Hey. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I love knowing that you're a Gestalt therapist, Jordan. The background in transpersonal work really lends so well to what we're doing. That was my world too. Each of you guys are giving us so many things. And Abigail Peck has a question. And Abigail, would you raise your hand if you'd be willing to come on screen and join us? Fantastic. Abigail's going to ask you her question, which just seemed related to what you were just saying now. Hi, Abigail. Here she comes.
Okay, am I good? Okay, perfect. Sorry. So yeah, I find that like every time I've kind of started to dabble in like having any sort of online presence, whether it be professionally or even just like on TikTok or whatever, I get like a sort of like, I guess you would call it like a vulnerability hangover. Like I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? I don't think that's right. Like I just second guess everything. If it doesn't gain any traction, I'm like, ooh. So it's basically just like a lack of confidence in having a presence online and like thinking about strangers perceiving me online. And so I would like to have an online presence. Kind of, I was relating to what one of you were speaking about with like wanting to kind of build a presence or community so that in the future, like if I want to write a book or something like that, I can, you know, have that and just build the community as you were all saying. But anyway, I think that's the gist of my question.
Is your question, Abigail, how to navigate the exposure boundary?
I think so.
Or is it about the
How to, I think it's more about the discomfort and like if anyone else has experienced that or if that was something any of you had to get past.
every day?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I know for myself, it's just been about practice and finding my voice. And I think as Brittany was talking about, just really feeling into the body and working through the stuff that feels uncomfortable and feeling through the boundaries of it. So I don't think there's like a simple answer to it, because I know for myself, it's really been just about personal development and knowing what feels good and being okay with what doesn't feel good and what doesn't get a response. And it's almost like you have to bump into walls to figure out what's going to work.
Right. So just buckle up.
No,
Yes.
what you're experiencing is totally normal around this stuff. It's like it's something that helped me was just repeating to myself, like, hey, people are gonna people. They're gonna people,
and they're ready to roll with the research.
Yeah, people are gonna. Oh, I got some feedback, but yeah, they're gonna do anything in their sphere to either communicate or you know, kind of, they'll either come in or slough out, and it's just you know, helpful for me to just say, okay, the people that are meant to be here are gonna be listening, and they're gonna be aiding and communicating and helping your journey, my journey, along the way. And that's really what matters about the platform, or what I'm trying to put out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
You're curious, like, I think I'm kind of coming back again to this intrinsic motivation. Like, your curiosity is primary, should be primary, you know? I mean, I think back to the first videos I made were like long form videos that I edited on like iMovie, and I memorized the script until my husband was like, why don't you just get a teleprompter app? And I was like, oh gosh. Like, I mean, the evolution of where I started of like doing, so like it, but for me, I was like, oh, I want to learn this technology. I want to learn more about this content. And so if people were interested, then that was a fringe benefit. But for me, it was just really being led by my interest and my curiosity, my experimentation. And then the response becomes very background. And I think that that's really, really important.
That's like the social media model for the SE model for social media.
Well, there's a flip side to it too, which I wanted to speak to, because we're very quick to give ourselves grief for why do I care what other people think? And I love people are going to people, and that's like, but the flip side to that is sometimes our resistance is our wisdom. Sometimes those like, eek, I don't know how I feel about this. If you can find like a nucleus of truth in the stories you're telling yourself, the stories I tell myself about what's going out there, because there were times I did overshare, and there were times where that very fine line between, sharing and oversharing and vulnerability and is blurred. So without pathologizing it, without shaming yourself, getting curious about the vulnerability hangover and asking without shame, okay, where is there possibly a kernel of truth in my concern here? And that'll help you look at your own body of work critically, which is a good thing. That shaming ourselves is not helpful, but it's useful to remember that sometimes us going, eek, I don't know how I feel about that, is actually a resource. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing to go, I don't feel good about that, and I'm going to take that down. And on some days that might be the right answer, and that's okay too.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
I just want to say that that's an amazing point. Yeah.
Right. Like listen to your gut sometimes.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on and asking the question, Abigail. And thank you everybody for your really awesome vulnerability just in the responding. I really got a lot about who you are and what you're risking to do what you do, like your own sharing. There's another question in the chat from someone who doesn't want to come online, but I want to be able to give them some voice here. Ama's asking more about the mistakes and the mechanics of how you began. So I can imagine if we were talking about mistakes and mechanics, there might even be some activation. So if you want to talk about mistakes and mechanics, but anyone might have an exercise to settle around that, just, seed planting out here. But I'll wait for your cue on doing an exercise. But what do you have to say about mistakes and mechanics of beginning?
Well, that's so nuanced. It gets nuanced to individual, I guess, moments. They're like, I don't want to say like there's plenty of mistakes that were made in my, I would say, opinion being out there. One thing I noticed about myself, and it took a long time to get this, is like, where do I want to use my platform for like a social justice movements, and where do I want to lend a voice there, and where do I want to lend a voice to somatic experiencing, and where do I want to lend a voice to bodywork, and being able to instead of necessarily weaving all of those, I definitely had to get real with myself and start to understand how I wanted to back off and maybe I isolate those posts or something like that, instead of going in full emotion. It was like there's a moment in time where Britt just covered this actually, where I think self-reflection, maybe sometimes like the post doesn't need to go out there, like that's all, like that's all okay, and it took me a while to get that personally. So
well, or like, how do we define mistakes? Because when we are uncomfortable with what we're doing or what we've put out there, right, it can be a learning experience, right? So it teaches us where to go next, or what our desires are going forward, or how we want to share. So I think mistakes are not really mistakes. They're opportunities. It may not be comfortable, but they're still opportunities.
Yeah. I got a demonstration or something that we can all do together if we want to go into it.
I felt that, Eddie. I was ready for that.
Awesome.
Guys, Eddie, if you haven't clicked on these folks' social media profiles, they are in the Q&A. A couple of times Rabia has posted them. You will see that Edward has a background. Ed has a background as a body worker. And so he's got, is going to have an excellent exercise for you right now. So that's my encouragement, that you go ahead and raise your little hand if you'd like to come on screen. If you'd be willing to, it would mean a lot to us to just share some space with you. And
I was just going to say, this exercise is for every single person on here to do, and I would love feedback from somebody here at the end.
Excellent. Okay. So a few more people are coming on, and I also just want to mention too that a couple of people have had their hand raised during the thing, like you want to ask a question, so you're raising your hand. The way to ask a question is to type it into the Q&A, and then other people will vote it up. But if we just see your hand raised in the sidelines, we won't be calling on you that way, but we will be asking you to come on screen for exercises like this. So anybody else want to join us? Here we go, just a couple of more. There we go.
All right, well, so as Ami said, I'm a body worker. It's a little hard to do body work online. So we love to talk about somatics and somatic practices that individuals can do on their own. It's important to remember that touch is not just an external sense, it's an internal sense. We have a lot of receptors under our skin that are judging our position in space and such. And one of the things that's important to remember is that our shoulders are suspended in air by our muscles. We feel often that we might have the weight of the world on our shoulders, especially now. So this is a really, really good practice to get into just if you're hunched over your social media account, or if you are just experiencing a lot of weight on your shoulders. We're going to use imagery as well, which is a huge part of SE. We're going to balance our shoulders out. They're floating in space. The only joint that connects your shoulder girdle is actually right here on your clavicle. So we're going to imagine that our shoulders are floating. Our shoulders, the back of our shoulder blades are like the back of our communication zone, right? And so this is going to help with feeling good, feeling able to be lighter and more communicative and have an open experience. So, so everyone close your eyes. Good. And imagine the backs of your shoulders feeling like a supportive chair. Now experience the shoulders floating. And what I like to say is, think of like the Golden Gate Bridge. It has two arches or two supports, and those two supports are your clavicles, and they're just suspending your shoulders in air. Now really feel into what this experience is like. Feel the support from the back of your shoulder blades. Feel your shoulders levitating off of your core area. Feel your breath deepen. Feel your clavicles lift. You may experience some tremoring. That is totally normal. If you go into tremoring, take another deep breath. If you experience a shaking sensation between two shoulder blades, take a deep breath. Now imagine both shoulder blades equal and on the same plane. They are together. They are balanced on the same plane. Stay here for a moment. Now slowly, as slow as you can go, start to shrug your shoulders. Very slowly. 5, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Really lift all the way up. When you get to the top, slowly, to the count of 10, 20 seconds, retract their shoulders back. Okay, slowly to the 10, 20 seconds, drop the shoulders. And slowly, 10, 20 seconds, roll the shoulders forward. Remember to take breaths during this experience. We're going to do it one more time, very slowly. Elevate. Retract. Depress. And roll forward. All right, when you're done rolling your shoulders forward, drop them down, take a breath, reintegrate. And we'll come back online. One thing I want to say about this activity is that it can't be done, it should be done even slower than this. This is a somatic shoulder exercise. We can do it even slower than this. If anyone's experienced a trauma intention release exercise, TRE, there's a certain time frame in which we close our legs toward each other during the exercise. It enables this tremoring to occur, which is basically our muscles tiring out at a deep level. We want to do that for our shoulders as well. There's so many muscles in our shoulders that enact and suspend our shoulders in air. And we want to balance them out on a consistent basis. It's really important. It opens the chest up, opens any sort of vagal communication points. And so we can do this very slowly and experience what it feels to open our shoulders up, really open our shoulders up, not just in a stretch like this, but in a slow, titrated way. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Any feedback? So the shoulders are like a suspension. It's like they are floating in space, and then we can use that imagery of a bridge to kind of hold those shoulder blades up. Yeah.
Really nice, Edward. I love it because I looked at your Instagram, multiple times before we gathered today, and it's all this great like muscular activity, but it's really great to be with you all in these exercises. And Claire Rosa Martha, am I saying your name right? Close. Thank you for kindness and a little bit of allowance there. Carol, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. It's just something to do these together. Something really to do these together. We are kind of at time. I bet some of you have noticed we're at time, and it just feels so nice to be together. What if we just go for like another 5 or 10 minutes and then we'll just slowly wrap up here. Yeah, because I think if the more we get to just experience what each other's offerings are too, we just get access to our own wellness. In the meantime, I just got a lot out of that, Edward. I arrived a bit more here. Like I noticed for myself just hosting these, I'm thinking about you guys a lot and how my activation has to show up to sort of host these. But I really actually love to live in a much more settled, chill place. And so getting to do these exercises with you is always the best part of these conversations because it lets me just show up a little bit more. And it's tricky to be settled while engaging publicly, isn't it? And that's just what I'm thinking about a lot with you. If anyone else would love to lead us in an exercise, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I'll go back and defer to our question list for another question. Guide me, folks. What would feel great to you?
Any questions?
Okay. Well, I think there was one I remember seeing Jaylyn, I think, and Abigail. I'm looking to see if Lori, they're all kind of at the same amount of votes. Jaylyn is just who I see right now. Jaylyn, would you be willing to come on and ask your question live? If yes, please raise your hands, your little hand on your screen, or type it in. If I don't see it up, I may ask for you, but I think it'd be more fun just to see you and be with you. Or Lori Schwartz is there. Lori, if you would like to ask your question live, would you like to raise your little hand? There, I'm going to bring Lori Schwartz over to just ask you some questions. Yeah, here she comes. This will be the last question we'll take. Okay.
Is this okay?
Yes, and we'll be kind of quick with this, Lori, because we do need to have a hard stop at 45 after. So we just got a couple minutes. Why don't you go ahead and throw out your question, and we'll see if someone can't hit it out of the park. Maybe just one of the panelists will respond.
Since body psychotherapy is a profession that isn't licensed, okay, many of us have social work degrees, masters, or massage licenses. What are your opinions about how we should move forward in the future? Because many of us, like you, Edward, I came from touch, and like you, Jordan, the psychoanalytic place, which I also trained, and the judgments and shames from the psychoanalyst. But then the people with touch are not necessarily mindful the same way SE teaches us to go slow and self-regulate through CYBAM. So I'm wondering if you have a vision for what our culture could do down the road, since there is a discrepancy right now between talking and touching. Like, we are cutting edge, and the licensing boards are getting a little bit strict. And I'll also say, because I want to be transparent, that there's a whole movement of plant medicine also that's happening, that's very underground without people that are licensed. And is it healing or traumatizing? Because we're really going anyway.
Lori, just in the interest of time and focus, I'm going to jump in here. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
And I hope you don't mind me. I'm going to narrow it a little bit just because we really just have a couple of minutes. I know Britt and Edward both have to sign off exactly in a couple of minutes, so I don't want us to have to lose anybody. But I want to put your question more in the context of these guys are social media experts. And so I think what you're bringing up is really like, how do we kind of dealing with controversial sides of psychology? Let's just put it that way for now, just to make it real broad. Touch therapy, psychedelics and things like that. Certainly in social media, those are all big combos. And I bet that's touched on you guys a little bit. And as far as speaking to the ethics of it, I think we'll save that for a different conversation, if you don't mind. Okay, Lori? So thanks for saying that. And I'm going to have you get off screen and have us say, let's just say that as our kind of closing inquiry, dealing with the controversial field of psychology on social media and the kind of things Lori just brought up. Just close us out with that.
Oh yeah, well, just to touch on Lori's subject, I think that the scientific method is going to inform a lot of things down the road, and it's really important that we communicate that scientific method and the new research that comes out on a consistent basis, like particularly with embodied cognitive science, that it's just going to have to come. It's going to have to come from a scientific background. Like a lot of efficacy studies need to be done that reinforce merging mind-body therapies and what they all look like, and reinforcing them and how important they are. Yeah.
The good news is that body of work is growing. So it's gonna, I think it'll at some point take care of itself in that way.
I was going to say, naming it is usually one of the best ways to deactivate any potential. Just name it. Like, if we're talking about something that's controversial, we can say it's controversial, and we can say more info, more info needed. Be informed that not everyone knows what this is a great way to make sure ethically we're just speaking what's true. Even if it's controversial, we can say so. That'll help.
All right, well, folks, any last sound bites you might leave us with to just say, one person on behalf of the team, leave us with a sound bite, influence our mental health for the better, the condition of the world. What would you have to say to just leave us all in a little bit of a better place. You already have enormously. So thank you so much for everything you've offered us today. It's just been really excellent to be with you. This will be posted and available on YouTube. I thank you so much for the gift of yourself in the world, your authenticity and vulnerability, and how you share your commitment to wellness. Any final words to nail it out? See lots of little hearts popping up on the screen. I don't know if everyone else can see those. All right, folks. So we will send you all of their websites and Instagrams in the so that you, and a follow-up email. Thank you, Eileen, Jordan, Eddie, Britt. You guys are fantastic. I just wish you all the best in everything that you're doing. SEI as a whole acknowledges you, and this community just thanks you for the gift of your offering today.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.